for both underground and surface operations around the globe. We are dedicated to green solutions, and we are proud to help drive the transformation of Canada's mining industry towards a more sustainable future. Back in 2018, McLean took a bold step forward by acquiring our very own test mine, providing us with a unique platform to push the boundaries of Canadian mining technology. This strategic acquisition positioned us as a leader in advancing cutting-edge innovations and solutions that cater to the needs of the mining sector. We are gathered here today for a significant announcement that speaks directly to the future of mining, infrastructure, and economic opportunity across our province, especially in our north. Today, we welcome a bold step forward from the Government of Ontario, one that aims to unlock vast economic and strategic potential of our province's critical mineral resources. At McLean Engineering and across Ontario's mining and manufacturing sectors, we understand that timelines matter, innovations matter, and partnerships with government, Indigenous communities, and industry matter most of all. It's an exciting day, not just for our industry, but for the future of Ontario. Because today is more than just an announcement. It marks a turning point in how we unlock our province's full potential. It is now my pleasure and honor to welcome Minister Lecce.
Alrighty, well, thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here. This is a first for the Parliamentary Assistant, who Chris was just newly elected in Sault Ste. Marie, a northern boy who, like I myself, is really excited about this assignment. So I just want to thank the entire team here, and obviously thank the team who's welcomed us into this amazing facility, a place that's been supporting learning, training, and excellence for a generation. And so I say thank you for the welcome. I want to thank the Mayor for his leadership, recently returning and helping to promote Sudbury, promote Canada to the world. That is so important, and we're grateful for your leadership. Really, we're grateful to you all. I want to just make one simple point that was captured in the introduction, which is this is our moment as Canadians, I think, to seize the potential before us. For too long, politicians have often been obstructionist in getting things done. They lack the imagination or the ambition to do the big things. And here we are at a time when our country is under attack, with an opportunity to lean in, to scale up with a sense of ambition and hope to be a self-reliant, strong economic powerhouse in the world. And that's what we're here to do in Sudbury, because this is the sort of the center of mining excellence for Ontario, supported by growth in Timmins in Northern Ontario, and of course future opportunities in the Ring of Fire. But right here, right now, we have massive levels of extraction and processing, value-added jobs in this community. And we have a vision for our province and for our country. And today, at the heart of our plan that our Premier and I unveiled just some days ago, was a commitment to reduce the time it takes to move with a sense of urgency while still maintaining the highest standards of environmental protection while fully respecting Indigenous duty to consult. We can do that while having a more nimble system that gets projects done. And when every jurisdiction on earth, virtually, in Australia to Alberta, to Saskatchewan, and to the European Union, when everyone around us has a permitting system that is getting projects done quicker, it is obvious to me, as sort of the new guy looking in, that we can do better. And I think that good-to-gate principle is really at the heart of this. We do amazing mining work and extraction, responsible resource development in this province and country. We're proud of the work happening in every mine in the province. But we recognize, too, that in a new world, with the election of President Trump, to the talk of the potential annexation of our country, or certainly the desire for our resources, now is our time to work together in partnership to get big nation-building projects done, to secure our economic prosperity for another generation. And how we do that is by making the systems easier for investors and project proponents and local communities. You know, we have examples where mines can take 14, 15, 16, 17 years from start to finish. And when you look at the European Union, I'm not comparing us to the Chinas or the Russias. I'm comparing us to comparable democracies on earth, industrialized economies. They do it in 8 or 9 years with the highest levels of protection. So my point today is we need to be a challenge function to ourselves as Canadians to do better in this respect. And that's on us. It's not on the business, it's not on the worker, it's not on the community. It squarely falls on government ending the needless delay. And that's why we're proud to be here. For Chris Scott and I, and for the Premier of Ontario, we're proud to be here in Sudbury. My first official visit in, we're going to say a mine. We're going to go with a mine. I know this is a training facility, but we're going to go with the mine. But halfway there. But we're here in part as a recognition that Sudbury is at the center of our economy, the center of Canada's resource economy. And we're very grateful for this opportunity to affirm to you that we have a plan. We have a legislation we've tabled, Protect Ontario by Unleashing Our Economy Act, and the fundamental basis of that bill is to create accountability on government to get projects done. We're going to reduce the timelines in the province by roughly 50%. And the future state, and we're talking about as of this fall, not in 2035, where we got to move with speed. This bill will be implemented by the fall, obviously should the legislature pass it, following meaningful consultations and engagement. But the bill is premised on reducing timelines so that we can go from a 48-month sort of average on permitting time in government to closer to 24 months. That is the sense of ambition I think Canadians want from their leaders today, because I think we recognize the world changed. And I'm proud that Canadians are frankly pushing governments to be more aggressive in this respect. And so our policy, this plan brings us to 24 months, well, that is a shorter turnaround time than the European Union, who just reformed their policy post-Trump at 27 months. So it is a responsible, balanced plan. It includes strong commitment to the environment. We're quadrupling funding for the species conservation program. Like, we really believe we can do both, protect the environment, grow the economy, get more Canadians working. And that's why we're here today, to unveil the next steps of our plan, which at the center of it is the one project, one process, which has been a long time coming for families and businesses and workers and trade associations and private sector unions have been calling on government to make the system easier. And so we are going to legislate this vision as our new reality, where project proponents, investors, Canadians, international investors, wherever they may come from, they will now come to the Ministry of Energy and Mines, one ministry, and we will shepherd their permit through the entire government so that they're no longer having to work through 19 ministries, having to wait sequentially for each approval. We will work with concurrence. We'll let these things happen at the same time. We're going to move them with a sense of speed and create accountability on government. And the other thing we're going to do, which is a unique but frankly powerful, is we're going to, through regulation, we're going to have the tools now, or the legal authority, to say to government, to say to, like, Chris and I, like, you know, we're literally, this is about looking from within of how we can do government better. We're going to impose a maximum number of days on the public service and government to make decisions. Certainty, predictability is what industry has told me in the past few short weeks that I've been here that they need more of. And so that's the basis of today's announcement. It's to create a system, create a team lead that brings these permits right across the government, gets them approved within that benchmark, where we have real accountability, real transparency, and a real sense of optimism that we can be much stronger as a country, much more self-reliant, and economically sovereign. You know, the mayor often speaks about economic sovereignty. I heard him so eloquently say this on TVO's The Agenda just a few weeks ago, and I want to pick up the theme. You know, we can never be beholden to the United States again. I want to believe all Canadians accept the premise that perhaps this wake-up call is helpful in that it's allowing us to diversify away from the U.S., but it's also allowing us to do the big projects that help secure our prosperity, that help inoculate us, protect us from the shocks coming from Trump or anywhere else in the world. And I think this is good for Canada, it's good for our economy, it's nation building, and that's what we're doing today here in Sudbury. And so I'm very proud of this, and I want to just make a clear commitment that as we build this plan, we will do it in partnership. I'm here like days after introduction because I'm here to speak with the mayor, meet with him, listen to communities, listen to workers, to hear the voices of Indigenous Canadians. I want everyone to know that their voices will matter as we build the implementation plan of this legislation. So I'm grateful and honored to be the Minister of Energy and Mines. We are on week 4. We've been doing this with a great sense of speed, but a real commitment to action. And I think that's the policy you're hearing from government today, that we are going to act, we are going to be decisive, we're going to be totally committed to realizing our potential as a clean energy superpower in the world. And we have all the resources the world needs. And I will end with this. China has cornered the critical resource market, and they are an adversarial foreign actor. They do not share our interests or our democratic values. They are a global pariah on the environment and human rights. And so if not Canada stepping up to get our resources to the market, it means Chinese mines, often in Africa or Indonesia, other examples where it's powered by coal, there's no environmental standards, no labor standards, there's just abusive actions when it comes to human rights. No Canadian could be comfortable with that as the alternative. But in the absence of our action today, we are allowing the Chinese government to monopolize and frankly undermine industry and workers here in Canada and around the West. So I feel very strongly, not just for the basis of our economy, but even from a Canadian that believes in the values of democracy and human rights, the rule of law, we need to get Canadian resources to the world. And so this is our moment to see, this is our opportunity to seize that moment, and I'm very grateful to be doing it with you all today in Sudbury. So with that, I want to turn it over to the Parliamentary Assistant, Chris Scott, who's been a great champion for the North, just got elected. He's on week 2, so this man is fresh, so be gentle to the media. I'll turn it over to Chris Scott. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Minister Lecce, and good morning, good afternoon. I'm not sure what time it is now. We're in a mine for a while. Hard to tell, but I want to thank Minister Lecce not only for being here in Sudbury today, but for the work that he's been doing. We've got a chance to work in the past in previous roles, but a lot closer now. And I can say this guy's an absolute champion for the North, a friend of the North. All the work he's doing, I just want to thank him for putting Northern Ontario at the center of this province's economic future. So thank you for your leadership and for bringing bold ideas and serious urgency to a file that matters deeply to all of us in the North. I'm not going to repeat everything you just said because that's not what I'm here to do, but I do just want to say you're absolutely right, and thank you. I think lots of excitement. We know that global demand for critical minerals is skyrocketing. We know that the Ring of Fire and projects across the North are key to meeting that demand. And we know that if Ontario doesn't lead, someone else is going to continue to lead, as the Minister said. The North has waited long enough. We've waited for governments to treat our projects with urgency and respect that they deserve. We've waited for a permitting process that makes sense. And we've waited for the political will and leaders like Premier Ford and Minister Lecce to recognize what all of us in the North have always known, which is Northern Ontario has everything that it needs to power the next century and be the economic engine of quite frankly, the hemisphere. And now, under the strong leadership of Premier Doug Ford, Minister Lecce, our government is delivering with purpose and urgency on a file that it's extremely welcome. I also want to thank, obviously, the great facility, the great hosts that we're in today. You guys are on the cutting edge of electric vehicles in the mining space, a great Canadian success story. I think we should all be really proud of that, and the innovation and the value that you've captured, I think extremely important. Another important nod to why it's so critical to be laser focused, create that urgency on approving the permitting, because when a new mine opens up or is expanded, it's not just good news for the miners, it's good news for people like yourselves who are able to sell and procure more Canadian-made products, creating more Canadian jobs. It takes a lot of concrete and a lot of steel to open up these things, so you gotta plug Sault Ste. Marie and our concrete and steel every time. It's a good day and also the mining shafts are made at Rector, so there's a real integration between everyone in the North. When a mine opens up, it's great, and but this is about more than just cutting red tape and ending the bureaucratic gridlock that has held northern communities back for far too long. It's also about building a self-reliant, competitive, and confident Ontario. It's about protecting what matters most and making sure that the North isn't just part of the conversation, we're leading it. And we're leading it with a framework that respects the environment, honors our obligations to Indigenous communities, and delivers the speed and certainty that investors need to make Ontario the #1 jurisdiction for mining. So thank you again for the opportunity to join you here today, and turn it over to the Mayor for a few words from him.
First of all, congratulations on the election. It wasn't too long ago, and the position. Delighted to have somebody from the Sioux, certainly in this portfolio. And Minister, I'll be honest, when I saw your name being appointed to Minister of Mines, we were very excited, and joined with the Minister of Energy, right? That portfolio is huge, and I'll say a few words, but I want to make sure that we'll talk about China. And I'm sure at lunch, but I'll say a few words on that. But before I get into my words, I just want to certainly acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional lands of the Tikimishing Anishinaabe today, and we recognize the long-standing relationship that they have with this territory. And as we all know, here in Greater Sudbury, mining and critical minerals are in our DNA. We are home to a globally recognized integrated mining cluster, 9 currently operating base metal mines, 2 smelters, 2 concentrators, and a refinery, and another 9 mines under development. So we have 9 mines in development, all within the city. I've had the occasion and opportunity to talk to other Minister of Mines from around the world, and I know from Sweden is a mining powerhouse, and I often tell them, well, you have 10 operating mines within your whole country. And in Sudbury, we have 9 operating mines within our city itself, and more into development. So it's exciting times, as was alluded to by your Parliamentary Assistant with respect to, and you mentioned that, the critical minerals situation around the world. As we're seeing the world changing in the sense that we have China that has gone out in the last decades to make sure that they secured those minerals and metals, and they are not playing by the same rules, right? They are not a market-based economy. They're state-owned enterprises. So it's really tough for people, from our people here, to compete against them. So the fact that, you know what, we know that processing and making sure that, the permitting side of things needs to be done quicker, that is, you're coming to speak to the choir, right? You're basically telling us what we wanted to hear, so this is great news, not only for Sudbury, for Northern Ontario, and for Canada. Your leadership, and Doug Ford leaderships as well, in this file, well, I think will reverberate around the country, because this needs to happen to solidify our role in the critical minerals sector in our leadership. Maybe a little fun fact that you may not know, Minister, is that here in Sudbury, we actually supply the United States with their nickel that it goes into their alloys, into the military equipment. It's based out of here in Sudbury. Because the United States only has 1 nickel mine, it's in northern Michigan, and actually they ship the ore here in Sudbury to be refined here. So that's who we are. And I'm delighted actually that we were able to come here at McLean's Engineering, one of our last Canadian-owned manufacturers of equipment. As you can see here, and they are at the forefront of that, of the electric vehicle transition in the mining sector as well, and they are heavily invested in Sudbury and continue to invest in Sudbury and your great staff that you have and the team. Because as much as we are a world-class jurisdiction because of the wealth of minerals and metals that are under our ground, the real value that we have here in Greater Sudbury are the people. The expertise that we have in Sudbury. We don't just work in Sudbury, we export that expertise around the world. And I know we have Marla here from Mine Connect, and the 300 small and medium-sized businesses in the mining and supply sector, based out of certainly most of Sudbury, Northern Ontario, just don't work in this area. They work around the world. So we export this knowledge. We export the Canadian Ontario brand, and we are very, very proud of that. And we also have world-class institutions like Laurentian University, Cayman College, and Collège Boréal that are certainly playing a key role in developing the technology and the talent that we need to move forward. And that's why an announcement like today is certainly important and matters a lot. Streamlining approvals through the one project, one process approach is a smart and necessary step. It eliminates duplication, reduces delays, and provides the clarity and confidence investors, Indigenous partners, and communities need to move forward responsibly and efficiently. When we move faster, without compromising environmental standards or Indigenous obligations, as you mentioned, Minister, we strengthen Canada's position on the world stage and the competitive advantage of Ontario, create jobs, and attract the investments needed to secure our future. Greater Sudbury welcomes these efforts, and we stand ready to work with the province, your team, Indigenous communities, and industry partners to build a complete, made-in-Ontario critical mineral supply chain from exploration to processing to advanced manufacturing. Let's seize this opportunity together to ensure Northern Ontario remains at the forefront of a clean, secure, and sustainable economic future. Again, thank you for your leadership, and I'm looking really forward to working with you to move this file forward with you. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Miigwech.
Hello, bonjour. I'm Frank Demers, Chair of the Board at the Ontario Mining Association. And today I'm here on behalf of our members and on behalf of Priya Tandon, our President, who couldn't be here today. Thank you, Minister, for having us today, and we really appreciate the opportunity to participate in this event. It's an honor to gather here with industry leaders, policymakers, and partners who care about Ontario's success and the mining sector as much as we do. Our industry is a major cornerstone of Ontario's economy, driving innovation, creating well-paying jobs, and investing in communities and strengthening our domestic supply chain. We cannot do this alone, and we're excited this government has hit the ground running, taking legislative steps towards helping make Ontario a more modern and competitive mining region. Ontario mining companies lead the world in safety standards, environmental protection, and ethical business practices. Strict regulations ensure we protect ecosystems, cut carbon emissions, and support long-term sustainability. And while we move towards a streamlined process, it will not be at the expense of these things that we hold dear. Our industry is committed more than ever to Indigenous economic reconciliation, workforce development, and community collaboration. With over 140 active agreements with Indigenous communities, covering impact benefits, exploration partnerships, and government resource revenue sharing, we aim to build community relationships that respect cultural heritage and traditional land stewardship. This commitment is also reflected in our workforce. Indigenous workers make up 12% of Ontario's mining sector, 4 times the provincial average. We see a more coordinated approach as a way to build on our successes with Indigenous partners, and by consolidating under a one project, one process approach, we feel it will provide opportunity for more meaningful consultation and discussions on permitting activities. Mining has been the backbone of Ontario's economy for generations. In 2023, 36 active mines contributed nearly $24 billion to the GDP, and with exports topping $64 billion. Today, this success is driven by over 22,000 employees working directly in Ontario mines, mostly in the north, earning wages nearly double the provincial average. Beyond the mines, our industry supports nearly 130,000 additional jobs in supplies and services and supply chain. Ontario has the resources and expertise to drive economic growth and innovation for decades to come. We must move towards an approach where an entire project is considered by ministries in parallel with dedicated project management support from our government partners. Our regulatory and permitting process must be streamlined for efficiency to boost investment certainty and foster competitive landscapes. The Building More Mines Act was a great first step, and we're confident that the one project, one process approach will build on the success already paved by this government. If passed, this legislation would be a first step in ensuring mining is a strategic priority for all of government through a new coordinated process. The future of mining is in our hands, and thank you very much for everybody's attention this morning, and thank you again for the invitation.
Alrighty.
We will now open the floor to questions from the media. Please come up to the mic and state your name and outlet. As a reminder, it's one question, one follow-up. We will start with our first reporter.
Hello, sir. Thanks for taking my question.
Good morning.
It was said a number of times during your presentation that the environment and Indigenous relations wouldn't be negatively impacted by all this, but that has been the chief concern anytime you bring up red tape, because red tape means regulation. what assurances or mechanisms are in place to ensure that those processes aren't negatively impacted by this legislation?
Well, first off, I'm a big believer that if we want to grow the economy, we need to ensure we protect the environment too. And both can be true. I mean, there's some in politics that want us to have to pick a lane. We choose to do both, or environmental protection and responsibility, in addition to strong commitment to grow the economy, create jobs in the north and across the country. The legislation we brought forth, especially today's announcement on the One Project, One Window initiative, is designed to make it more efficient to do business in the province, where we're up against a global competitive race where capital moves in the path of least resistance. We need to create a competitive advantage for Canada. And there are taxes and regulatory elements that sometimes impede investment to flow to the province. So if we want to create more jobs, more than the 20,000 good jobs, the women and men who rely on this sector, then we have to accept a premise. The status quo, one of the slowest permitting systems in the industrialized world, cannot be acceptable in today's politics, in today's world. So the legislation before us, while it, yes, speeds up the process of government, creates accountability on decision makers, cutting that down by half. In the bill, we also increase enforcement, increase the capacity of governments to do inspections without notice. We increase penalties, including jail time for non-compliance. Zero tolerance is the message. Now, I don't have to say this too loudly because, the folks in this room and across Sudbury and across the north are highly responsible corporate, socially responsible actors. They care about the environment. They live here. They work here. Their kids are here. We have a moral obligation to preserve this for future generations, and the mining sector has done brilliant work in this respect. So I'm confident in them, but having said that, we've increased the penalty regime, the inspection regime, and the enforcement capacity of governments to make sure we protect the environment while we grow the economy and unlock the true economic potential of Canada.
Thanks. And the way that you've described it, that you're not foregoing environmental protections, not foregoing Indigenous consultation, streamlining the process, more industry, it just seems like a no-brainer from how you've described it. How did the system that's presently in place come to be? And yeah, if you could explain the context behind how we got to this point.
I'm going to phone a friend. I may call the mayor for this one. I may call Frank, the chair, for this one. You may have an opinion. Look, I am not the guy that could explain why government doesn't work. I'm here to try to fix it. I mean, often, was it Ronald Reagan who said, don't call the government if you want a solution. I'm here to challenge governments to do better for the taxpayer and for the country. We're in a war, an economic war. We have to seize the moment, but we have to be balanced and responsible, move with, yes, speed, but element of, collaboration. This bill does that. It's a realization that if we want to be a strong, self-reliant economy, that we've got to unlock the resource potential of Canada. And if we care about the environment, then we will care about the mines being exploited, and I'm being very generous and diplomatic with my words, in Africa by the Chinese, with precisely no labor standards. I mean, we're talking about egregious violations of law that undermine the dignity of the person. I hope I'm going to be asked about them. The fact that they're using coal power as the power source for their mines. In what world is that better than this? We have the cleanest grid, one of the cleanest grids on Earth. 90% of the generation of our power is non-emitting, be it hydro, nuclear, renewables. It's an amazing story. We have high standards. We're going to strengthen those and continue to take a zero tolerance approach. But I honest to God, I cannot imagine a world where if we don't step up, those guys are going to win the day, and they already are. And, obviously this is a comment specifically on the authoritarian regime of China and countries like that in Russia. And there's a reason why in the legislation we also have provisions, I'll speak more about this tomorrow in Thunder Bay, where we are going to protect Canadian resources and keep Canadian minerals in Canadian hands because of these nefarious actors around the world. So I'm confident in our policy, but I would happily turn to any of my colleagues if they have a perspective on how we got here. I'm not sure anyone wants to take this question actually, but Mayor, do you have anything you'd like to share? Okay, I've done a good job, which means, okay, we'll leave it there.
Minister Ian Campbell from CTV Northern Ontario, welcome back to Sudbury. Can you give us some background a little bit on the legislation? When do you plan to table it? When do you hope it'll pass? And will it apply to mines currently under development?
Every mine, there's about a dozen mines in Ontario before the ministry. All of them will benefit from the one project, one process vision, and that's the commitment we're making. Every single proponent, small and large, domestic and international, you will benefit from this new accelerated process that is balanced, responsible, but makes decisions in a timeline that is defensible, so that we're actually within the realm of defensible, within the Canadian norm. Right now, we are well outside of that often. With respect to the legislation, we've introduced it about a week ago. It'll go through the House. I don't presuppose the outcome. I mean, we have a majority government, but we'll respect the process. And I've personally briefed opposition critics, offered them briefings to them, which I just think on this issue, we're in a bit of a war. I like to think that the Team Canada approach is important. I think you see this from the mayor, we see this from the premier with the federal government. Like, this is what we need to do: work together in the public interest, the national interest. So I've reached out to them, and I'm going to keep reaching out to everyone who will listen to make the case that we need to move. We got to get on with this. We cannot defend the status quo, and that's why I'm proud that we brought this forth. And the plan would be implemented for the fall. So passed in the spring. We'll take the spring, summer to do our due diligence. We're going to consult with industry, with Indigenous leaders. They got to be in the driver's seat on much of this, communities. And then we'll build our regulations, which are really the sort of like the implementation plan that will come. But it'll be in place for this fall of this year.
I've asked you this before, but just to elaborate, I'm curious about if you can elaborate on what your ministry is currently doing in opposed to approaching other countries. Where can we send our critical minerals? Sure. I know things have changed. Our mayor has gone over and done work in Asia. The premier's only signed, correct me if I'm wrong, inter-domestic trade agreements with 2 provinces so far. And if we can't rely on the Americans, and it doesn't sound like the province is heading to China, where is your ministry planning to approach?
So it's a really important question about how do we export, diversify our exports. I mean, we should first off accept that while President Trump will say falsely that he doesn't need anything Canadian, that is just demonstrably false. The Americans are 100% reliant on China, for example, for many rare earths, including titanium. These are gallium, among others, that are necessary. They are prerequisites to build their military hardware. So if they're not buying it from a Chinese-owned or operated mine, then the alternative can be Canada, where we have these resources here in Ontario specifically, some of which are already unlocked, and some of which could be unlocked as we think about the Ring of Fire. But we have an existing sort of Ring of Fire right here in the Sudbury Basin, and I'm proud of that. I want to keep building upon that. Likewise, build capacity in Timmins and Thunder Bay and other regions where we have that supply chain benefiting. So we're going to implement this plan, the one project, one window. It's all designed to move with the speed of the market and to demonstrate to the people of Canada that we're going to try to get these resources out of the ground into foreign markets. Now, the European Union, among many other nations in the Asia Pacific, are calling for access to critical minerals. They need to be affordable, and obviously they need to be accessible to tidewater. And we have deep sea ports, of course, the Great Lakes, of course, in Northern Ontario. So we have the capacity. We already are exporting into the U.S. Much of the nickel that's coming from this region is, in fact, Canadian, with a very small fraction of that or a minority of that coming from America. So on the Trump file, we want to leverage our position. I think we need to use the critical minerals as our soft power leverage in the negotiation. So we're not going to give up on America. We still believe, we're going to get through the madness of this negotiation. But you're absolutely right. We've got to think beyond that. And that's why the Government of Ontario, Minister Fedeli, and others have been on the road in East Asia. We've been in Europe, and obviously many other emerging economies that are looking for a reliable, and I emphasize a reliable trading partner. But Mayor, do you want to maybe speak a bit about your experience on the road? You've been the ambassador here.
Thanks, Minister. Yeah, certainly that question with respect to what more can we do from Ontario and export around the world. My message as well is to say what more can we do in Canada with our own minerals. We have basically established supply chain lines around the world, which is great, but at the same time, we need to be looking at what more can we do in Ontario, what more can we do in America. We have the greenest nickel and critical minerals in the world, right here. And as the Minister said, our people and our businesses here are competing against China and that extract in Indonesia without the same standards at all. And so, and that's a major challenge that we have. That's why we need to work with the industry and support industry, maybe in a different way than we've ever had before. But certainly we'll work with Europe, and obviously we'll continue because we have integrated supply chains already around the world. But I think now with the province and the leadership of Premier Ford and Minister Lecce, what more can we do to do that here in Sudbury, in Northern Ontario, in Thunder Bay, Timmins, Sudbury? And that's what I think that is a strategic advantage that we have here in Northern Ontario. And that's why I'm delighted to have the minister here to talk about that and certainly and be very supportive of that. This is great news. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking my question. It's Nick from Radio Canada. Merci beaucoup. Obviously, the goal of the bill is to eliminate red tape, bureaucracy. So I just wanted to know, what does that look like? What are the processes that will be eliminated when we're building a new mining project?
Sure. So it's not so much that we are eliminating anything. What we're doing is streamlining and creating a central repository when the project proponents, so a company that wants to invest, open a mine in the province, for example, instead of them going to literally, let's say realistically, 8 to 10 ministries. You've got MTO involved on the roads, and you've got a ministry for broadband, a ministry on transmission, a ministry involved in energy generation, a ministry involved in natural resources, and then the environment. It's designed, by its design by government, it's to slow down decisions. So opposed to the status quo where they're going to 19 ministries and all over the place, and that there's no internal government mechanism or pressure function that gets the permits approved in a timely manner. We have examples of assessments taking 1,000 days sitting on the desks of in the government, in the ministry, when we know we could approve these things in hundreds of days, in a fraction of the time. So it's not that we're removing process or due diligence. The opposite is true. What we're simply doing is creating accountability on everyone, and that includes on the project proponent. This is not about government, taking on all the responsibility. We're actually saying to industry, you've got to step it up as well. Better, more mature, complete, comprehensive application at the front end. So they submit one proposal, we coordinate it, we centralize it, and we ultimately move it, shepherd it right through the government on the same timeline so that we stick that 24-month maximum. What we're also doing is we're creating deadlines on us. So industry needs to do, they'll have to do perhaps a bit more work on the front end. We've got to do more work as we bring these permits through the government, but we're committing to a timeline. And that's certainty that no industry has, that they desperately desire. And if we want to attract more investment as we compete with China, with the US, with many other countries around the world, it's these types of actions that I think instill confidence in the market, that we've found a way to seize the moment, but balancing it with the protections I think Canadians want.
Thank you so much. My follow-up question comes from my colleague from CBC,
Sure.
Eco-Justice Canada, that talked about Bill 5, saying that it would repeal the Endangered Species Act and risk the life of species and wildlife in Northern Ontario. I just want to know if you had a comment about that claim.
So what the bill does is it includes stronger provisions for investigative powers for the Ministry of Environment. That's under my colleague's ministry. But what his component does is it includes stronger investigative powers that the ministry will now have. It will include warrantless searches, which we don't have today. It will include compliance and mitigation orders. It will include the prosecution, which can include now jail time. I mean, the message for any industry that's listening is zero tolerance. The expectation is absolute commitment to the law and the moral obligation they have to their workers. And I think any industry in this province, especially for the Canadian businesses and many of the Western-owned businesses that operate in Ontario, they're good corporate socially responsible actors. But we're leveling up. We're sort of increasing expectations on them, just like we are of government. So we're also quadrupling the funding for the conservation program. Species conservation program is about $4.5 million. We're now going to $20 million to add more value in communities to help restore those habitats and protect them for the long term. So I think that's that when I speak about balance, we actually are enhancing many provisions while concurrently speeding up the permitting approval so we can get shovels in the ground and we can create jobs and we can grow our economy and stand on our own 2 feet as Canadians as we continue to go through the ongoing challenge with President Trump.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Seeing no further questions, this concludes today's press conference. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you all. Thanks so much. All right.